Alright, what is up gamers? This is RatLab back with you for the final progress report of our game Chess Act 2. Now that we are pretty much at the end of the journey, let's just take a quick recap on everything we've done so far. To start, in Milestone 1, our lab rats constructed a very basic prototype of the game. We just included a simple runnable game of basic chess. Pieces could be moved and captured, the game could also end the working game, but nothing special yet. In Milestone 2, we expanded our game quite extensively. We first refactored our existing game logic in anticipation for customization, and also added basic main menu navigation. Then, with this solid foundation, we constructed data structures to encapsulate the entire chess game state, which needed to include a lot of data to account for customized game moves, sprites of pieces, board dimensions, and game loadouts. And lastly, we added the final piece of the puzzle, user interfaces, for the players to make their own customized pieces, boards, and game loadouts. Our dear project had finally started to look a little more complete. Now, at the present stage of Milestone 3, we added piece abilities like castling, piece promotion, en passant, and the pawn first move of 2 tiles. Furthermore, to those who have tested our game before and had feedback about the UI and general controls, we have heard your thoughts and made vast improvements to the UI, more on that later. Lastly, we also did some bug squashing and refinement of our current build. Alright, enough rambling, it's time to look at some gameplay. So, like before, in the main menu screen, we have the play button, which brings you to the game selection. We have the library, which brings you to unit, sports, and game loadout selection. And we have settings, which we have finally implemented the game logic such that the data is preserved in between states. So to start off, let's look at the library. Same as always, we have the units, boards, and game loadouts. We can also delete units here, and don't worry, we can always just reset to bring the default pieces back. This is the same for boards and the same for game loadouts. For units, most of it is the same. We can still add a name to our piece, we can still add a sprite to our piece, we can still add audio, and we can still add moves. Once again, we have set and slider moves. For set moves, this is applicable to something like a knight, which has a set coordinate it can move to. For the slider, this is suitable for bishops, rooks, and queens that can move in a certain direction for a certain range. And we also have capture rules, can, cannot, and must. Most pieces like the rook, bishop, and queen can use the can capture move, meaning that they can move and they can make that move whether or not there's a piece there for them to capture. For a pawn, they would use the cannot capture move when moving forward and the must capture move when moving diagonally. We've changed the way moves are presented in the moves added preview. If I do something like this moves, as you can see, I can clearly see the move type, the range, the direction, and the capture rule. Over here, we also have a tribes panel, which we will be using for the abilities. For a piece like a pawn would use the tribe's pawn first move, promotable, and en passant, which corresponds to the abilities which it can do. For something like a king, it would use a castler tribe, and a rook would use a castly tribe. This would enable the pieces to castle in game. We've also added an instructional panel over here, as users have given feedback that going back to the video in order to figure out how to create a piece is a little unintuitive, so we've left some instructions here they can follow. For boards, not much has changed. I can still add a height and length of the board, and I can still add pieces, sorry, add tiles that I want to remove. So I'll just give you the name and description. What I've added here is a warning that any dimension higher than 100 risks crashing the game. This is not due to a logic error, but rather due to limitations of modern computers. Uh, we just cannot render that many tiles, unfortunately. For game loadouts, pretty much the same thing. We have, however, added a help area for instructions. As mentioned, users have feedback, not really clear what to do. Instructions here, so it's clearer on what to do. And like always, we can choose the number of players we want, can choose the direction of the players face. We can delete pieces, we can add pieces, we can change the player piece added. You can add the win conditions, and you can add the points, the win condition values for each piece added. Right, let's move on to the actual gameplay. Under game selection, we have 4-player and basic chess, and we have also added 2 new game modes, Chaturajy and Horde chess. For the rules, you can read our README. It'll take too long for me to explain here. So let's just dive right into basic chess. So as you can see, the UI is a lot different now. First thing you'll notice, I can now pan the camera with WSAD. I can now rotate the view with the R key, and I can reset the view with the Q key. Instructions are over here in case you forget. Right. We've also added auto end turn and auto rotate. What does that do? Let's say I am the red player and I move a piece, auto end turn and auto rotate is on. So making a move here, it automatically rotates to the blue player. If I turn these off and I move a piece, it just doesn't happen. If I turn it back on, I can now enjoy a more streamlined gameplay loop where I can simply move a piece and the view and rotation just does it for me. Right. If you've noticed, clicking pawns now also reveals the second tile I can move to, which is the pawn first move I can do. And after executing that move, I can't do it anymore. Previously, we just had it activate using this button here, which users have complained it was unintuitive, which we have now fixed. Other automatic abilities that show up when clicking the pieces are the castle, promote, and ampersand. I am not gonna take the time to move all the pieces in the place so I can show you the abilities, so I've pre-recorded them over here. So castling, you can click the king piece, then you can click the rook piece, and it'll castle, and there is validation logic. You cannot castle with the enemy, you cannot castle if there are pieces in the way, and you cannot castle if the king or rook have moved before. This promotion, you can see, yep, I can click the red pawn, I can click the blue pawn, and then I can execute the promotion. Yeah, the converted red pawn to the green pawn can now use the same moves the queen has does. And as I can see, the newly created red queen captures the already existing blue queen. Right, we also have pawn first move of 2 tiles over here, as explained before. And we also have en passant. So as you can see here, the blue team moves 2 tiles forward, and the red team expertly executes the gamer move of en passant to capture the blue pawn and also move to its place behind it. Alright. Yes, back to the in-game UI improvements. Right, again we can move, we can pan, we can rotate, we can reset our view. What else? We can also enjoy a very nice scoreboard and piece panel over here. Clicking any piece reveals its traits and reveals its values, points, and penalties it shows. For example, for Chaturajy, which so brief overview, if you lose your king, you're kicked out of the game. And you can also win the game, so you can win the game by being the last one standing or accruing enough value points. So let's say I move my knight here. Let's turn off auto rotate just to make it easier. Right. Then if I take my rook here, okay, let's take a step back here. So each piece has a value point here. First person to capture 20 value points wins. And a king also has a penalty of 1, meaning if you lose your king, you lose the game. So if I do this here, I capture the blue king, you'll notice that the blue player is now skipped because the blue player has lost the game, they are kicked out of the game. Right, so that is the scoreboard, and the piece showcase the scoreboard. As you can see here, the player has captured the king, which is worth, the red player has captured the blue king, which is worth 3 value points, and the blue player has lost his king, and he accrued a penalty of 1, which is what caused him to be kicked out of the game. Yeah, so that's the piece, that's the scoreboard. We also have a game log, because players have fed back to us that it's unclear what pieces the previous players have moved. This is especially important for custom games where where the player might have set each player to have more than one move, like 4 moves or so. Then this game log will come in handy. As you can see, I can clearly see what the red player, the red knight has moved to this coordinate and etc. Right. So I believe that is all I have to showcase for the gameplay. Alright. So I guess that's the end of the video. Thanks for playing, like, share and subscribe, and we will see you at Splashdown.